like we humans do. Unlike before, where you would create a plan and then say, let's execute on it, what this does is it allows you to make your plan dynamic, right? You get some information, then you do something, then you think, then you do something more, then you think, then you do something more, right? And this gives the power to create like a lot more, powerful agents as such. So I would say, like, for anybody in the enterprise, this would be an absolute, like, essential thing, and this is no doubt about it, this is going to take off and be huge.
Yeah. Okay, essential, John, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely essential. Reminds me of when my mother used to tell me, before I said something rude, why don't you just count to 10? I think that the idea of being able to put a pause, I think they do a good job of saying where it's not used. Simple queries. That doesn't seem to help there, but the notion of putting a pause in, to me, this is part of a bigger issue, which is how do we think about meaning in the context of a semantic operating system, right? And I think that that's where we're getting to, because we're just discovering the functions of how we relate to the models to get their best output, if you will. And this notion of a pause to do any number of semantic preparation steps, so that it then goes out, gets the proper tools, and assembles them, and so forth. I think this is a big deal.
There's a question from Vivek about what's the difference between the this tool and the deep thinking. Alden, do you want to take it?
Yeah. So deep research is basically you create a plan at the start and then you execute it, right? To use an analogy, it would be like saying, how do you go from Boston to New York, right? And you start your plan or you map yourself in Boston and then you follow it. That would be like deep research. Uh, Thinking is where you basically start driving from Boston, and when you, like, in 30 minutes, you say, okay, where am I now? Let me think, right? And it allows you to create a dynamic plan and solve more complex problems than what you would with just basic deep research.
Right.
And let me jump. Okay, sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think the trade-off we're talking about here is time versus veracity or value of output. So
Right.
and immediately we're like, oh my gosh, I want the answer. It's got to be really quick. Just what time is it in Bangalore? That's an immediate thing here. Deep research almost seems like they have a time box. And I think, Alden, you're talking about how this is going in, use old school world batch thing here. I'm putting my request in. I'm willing to wait even 2 days because it's going to save me 3 weeks of work, or it's going to be so sophisticated. So I think we're already seeing with deep research that the user is more than happy to give up time to save weeks and weeks or to have a much better answer. This is just a refinement of that.
Okay, let me jump in and say that technically what Think is they are tracking the dependency parameters of the complex problem, and they're trying to actually make sure that those dependencies are successfully addressed before they respond. So essentially it's this breaking the complex problem into pieces, but in addition, they are tracking the resolution of those parameters, the dependency parameters, successfully before they respond. So that's actually deeper thinking.
And the next revolution. Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, Alden, I think the next revolution is from when the model feels stuck, as they pop out of band and go back to the human. So some of these models ask the humans up front for the refinement, and as they start driving to New York, and next thing you know, they're in Connecticut. Hey, let's pop back to the human and ask them if they actually want to go to Philly instead, or to get refinement, or show them as initial feedback.
It opens up a lot of options. You can go back to the human, you can go to a judge, you can go to somebody who is scoring, and then get more data. All of those options start opening up.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a dynamic data from the outside to validate what you're doing is essentially the differentiator here. It's a completely different mechanism than the.
Yeah, I really like the way you described it, Luda, which is a dependency. A tracing of the dependencies. There's a fantastic book from the 1960s called "Organizations in Action" by a guy named Thompson, and in it he says, "Why do people organize? They organize to reduce uncertainty." And he says, "Where does uncertainty come from?" He says, "Interdependence." To your point, Luda, and he says there are three fundamental forms of interdependence: sequential, A to B to C to D to E; reciprocal, A to B, B to A to C, C to A; and then pooled, like when you're making a movie or doing a heart operation, everybody has to come together at the same time. And I think what this does is it allows for better explication of either the sequential or the reciprocal, and maybe even the pooled. And then, to your point, I think when I say semantic operating system, Luda, I think some of those dependencies we understand and some of them we don't. As Alden was saying, you might be calling out to a judge or whatever. I think in the semantic operating system, we are actually defining those dependencies and also the nature of the problem. Is it sequential? Is it reciprocal or pooled? And sometimes, depending upon what you find, a sequential answer becomes reciprocal or pooled. And you need the ability to pop back up, as you say, Paul, reach out to humans and figure out, let's all work on this together. Then it goes back into reciprocal, goes back into pooled. And so I think this is a big deal in terms of semantic operating system development.
Yeah, and maybe since we are deeply going into this topic, Ankar, scroll to when to use the think tool, and that actually, to John, to your point about sequential decision making and the tool output analysis and policy heavy environments, because you can have detailed guidelines that you need to address. So it is a different type of a tool. Okay, sounds like a great discussion. Essential it is. Let's proceed, Ankash.
And for everybody, I'm just putting in the comments section, I'm putting in a free PDF of that book I talked about.
Thanks.
John, which comment section? LinkedIn or YouTube?
I'm sorry, on our StreamYard studio.
On right here in the
comments.
Yeah, I don't think that goes to the viewers.
I think it does. Okay, but let's,
I'll figure that out later.
Okay, we'll figure it out. Okay, sounds good. Essential. Thanks, Lucinda. Let's Essential Monday. Yes. Okay, let's proceed, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from the Wall Street Journal and talks about how Ford is looking to innovate faster with AI agents and NVIDIA's GPUs.
Yes, this was Adam's, but Adam had difficulties with the voice today. Not his voice, his computer's voice. So let me introduce this. This article is an interview with the AI chief of Ford Motors, and it talks about where Ford Motors is using AI with NVIDIA chips and the various design and R&D areas to create better cars. So I actually thought this was optional. Yeah, it's Ford. Maybe it is worth important, but I didn't get anything out of this article that we didn't know before. So I was in the optional camp. What did you think about this, Alden?
Yeah, just looks like a PR. So I would put it as optional.
Yeah. Alden, I went to business school with Joe Henricks, a real good buddy of mine who was president of Ford for a while. And I asked him, I said, I can't believe all the coverage you guys get in Wall Street Journal. And he said, Paul, I don't know why. Wall Street Journal just loves Ford. And he said, anytime we call, they get an article put in. So I'm not surprised here at all. I think they've done a lot of testing on the reader, and it's a clickbait well for their older audiences.
Okay, so optional for you? Too?
Optional.
John, going optional. Anything to? Okay, optional, despite the Ford. All right, let's proceed, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from Qt AI's Moshi. So they have launched a new model called Moshi Viz, where they are teaching Moshi to converse about images.
Yep. Moshe was introduced just in February, a speech-to-speech with very low latency. John, what did you think about this virtual Moshe?
Yeah, I was on the fence. I was going to end up with optional. I was on the fence between important and optional, but I think it's optional. This is pretty. It's fun. I mean, you listen to it, describe what's going on, like that funky thing up at the top. Ankash, if we go back up, this. I think it's a plaything in a Paris, a Parisian, park. Just as a beautiful kind of jungle gym, if you will. And figure out what the heck that is pretty amazing. And Moshe does a great job. Says, "Oh, looks like a plaything. Looks like it's in a park." Guesses that it's Paris. So it's impressive in terms of its thing. And then in terms of dialoguing about images, this is one of those things I just don't know if my intuition is right. Like, is this? I don't think this is going to be a big deal. But then I thought MTV would be a big deal until I saw it. You know what I mean? So I worry if dialoguing about images is a huge deal, this is essential. If it's not, which I don't think it is, I think this is optional.
Okay. Anybody wants to go between optional and essential? Alden?
No, this is optional for me. Just changing modalities. I'm not sure what the use case is for, that would make this a radically, important thing. Uh,
Well, I was thinking, Alden, the one way it could become radically important is if the American for Disabilities Act, were to extend and say, hey, look, if you have images for the sake of the blind, you have to be able to describe them, for example. But, so there's some regulatory thing this could become a big deal overnight. I think this current situation, it ain't going to happen.
John, but stay on that. I mean, accessibility is a big cost expense for companies. I know when I was first field, we spent over $1 million making sure our application was accessible. And what does accessibility look like in an AI generated world?
Yeah,
is a huge deal. And actually, I don't know how they solve that on the gaming industry here, but it is a non-trivial point for certain applications. And there's a whole, and the reason we had it was that we sold to utilities, and utilities had a whole bunch of law firms that were suing them, not having accessible websites. So this is going to be a huge cost for companies going forward here after this gets defined. And it's going to define in the lawsuits. It's going to be lawsuits. It's going to be court cases, and then it's going to get.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was actually thinking, Alden, of beauty industry when they're recommending products based on selfies. So in order to get engagement, you might use this tool to go deeper into the picture and the like and discuss it. So that might be in industries like that may become quite huge. But it sounds like for now optional.
Yeah, because we already have fantastic, video to video, video to text, image to text, all of those are there.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to rack my brain as to why image to voice would be under what use case it would really be a factor. You can already go to image to text and then text to audio.
It's I think I think here they're focusing on recognition of what the image is about and what's the pieces are about. But nonetheless, it's optional for now.
Kevin says we have an ageist point of view here. Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's proceed, Ankash.
What did we rate this, Luda?
Optional.
Okay. Okay, the last one that we have for today is a research paper which talks about reinforcement learning for reasoning in small LLMs, what works and what doesn't.
Alden, what did you think? You got a heavy lift today.
Yeah. So on this, I would say optional until they prove themselves, right? So now what this is they are just showing similar to how DeepSeek completely smashed the yield curve and was able to train models for really cheap. This is an example where for a couple of $100, they created a fantastically accurate model, right?
Actually, Alden, I think it was $42, but yeah.
$42. Okay, yeah, right. So, good stuff, but I think the real proof will be like if they are able to now deliver a commercial application of this and move the Nvidia stock price or something like that. At which point, this paper will then go from being optional to becoming like earth shattering. So they need to do a DeepSeek moment with whatever this paper does.
I actually was going to make a case for important. Look, this is available right now. It's out of Vietnam. It's using the Chinese models. I happen to think that the edge plus small models and reinforcement learning are to do radical things in terms of the cost base and capability here. And I think organizations need to start thinking about it. I agree with you, Alden. I wouldn't make it essential, but this is it's an old. If you ever read Clay Christensen's work on disruptive technologies and how the mini mills in the steel business, this is before dumping and everything from the Chinese, but back when there was competition in the US, the mini mills started with rebar, and then they moved into cast steel, and then they moved into rolled stainless, which is a very expensive and difficult process. I think that this is the rebar of AI.
Yeah, I actually agree with John. I also rated it as important. We will get on the edge way more than now, and due to this type of techniques that are already available, give the budget and force it to get performance.
We got a perfect.
Paul, could you?
Paul, I think you got a lot of background noise.
No, yeah, I'm just excited about adding Dr. John's quote, "The rebar of AI," to the to the ever quote list here. Yeah,
Okay, so are you agreeing with important, Paul?
I'm not, but I'll support it. Yeah.
Ha. Alden agreeing with important?
Yeah, it's 42 bucks is good, and
Okay.
if,
Cool. All right,
it's
important
tech
it is.
innovation.
Important it is. Ankash, please get us the rating sheet. And while we're waiting, Paul, what's happening with the Learning Lab tonight?
That is a good question. We have an open slot in Learning Lab here, so I've got 2 options. But people are in line, have an option. Let me know. We can get it slotted in.
Okay.
But we are confirmed for tonight for 7 o'clock for our Learning Lab.
And
Okay.
there will be a 5 minutes on how do you create an AI cluster.
Great, John. Great. Actually, John, that might be a bigger topic overall because I think a lot of people are interested in that. Actually, let's make that the showcase because that fits in right into the AI blueprint.
So,
So anyway, to answer it, so tonight's showcase we'll be discussing
7 o'clock Eastern time, please join, and you will have a mystery speaker. So it's maybe more interesting. Okay. So today we have 2 essentials, 2 importance, and 2 optionals. So essentials is working with LLMs as a team or using LLMs as teammates. And another essential is the Think tool, the new technique from Anthropic. Thank you all for listening. We really appreciate our participants who give us comments. Thank you very much. Alden, thanks for joining. Like always, tremendous comments. Very much appreciated. Thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Great. Thanks for having me.